Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk About, your usually weekly news show where I would usually gather up all of the headlines from the past week in gaming and break them down with you. But if you've been keeping up to date, well, there are so many games coming out that I'm going to put the news on the back burner, even though there's just been so much news. There's been a lot of news. There's a lot of sources you can go to have someone tell you all about that news, though. Instead, for the time being, we are just going to be talking about the various amount of games that are releasing in this month to 2 month period between September and October. There's just too many games. My poor wallet. My poor wallet. I'm sure you are also aware of all of these games and are worried about your wallet. But today we are here to talk about Mortal Kombat 1, which just released. I don't know when this video is going to come out, but it released in the past week. Hopefully, depending on when this came out, depending on if I was lazy and edited it quickly or not. We'll see how it goes. Let me know how long ago the game came out, depending on when you're watching this. Anyways, yeah, we're talking about Mortal Kombat 1. And full disclosure, though, first things first, this isn't going to be like a deep introspective look, deep dive into the fighting mechanics and all of that stuff, because I'm a casual fighting game player. I'm so casual, in fact, that Mortal Kombat is the only fighting game that I've played, really. So if you're looking for like the technical terms with like rollback, net code, whatever that stuff is, definitely don't take anything I have to say to heart, because I am coming from this from a casual's perspective, which, is the masses. Most people who play this game are likely to be more like me rather than the hardcore tournament playing Evo type of players. You know what I mean? So yeah, with that in mind, that means as a casual player, I'm here to check out this story. And yeah, of course, being the story driven, this part being about the story, I'm not going to go into any spoilers. But because of how short the story is, over like considering other games and how long that this game has been out compared to other games, this is a relatively short story because it is a fighting game story, and those don't usually tend to be too long. Because of how short it is, I'm sure a lot of people have already finished it. And because of that, I'm going to do a story spoiler section at the end of this video. So if you want to stick around for that, I'd appreciate that very much. Or you can just skip to that if you want to hear me talk about all of the story spoilers. But taking it in from a surface level non-spoilery position, the story's pretty good story, I must say. To give a little backstory to my history with Mortal Kombat, I had Deadly Alliance back in the day. I didn't really play it much. It was just one of my dad's old games that he had sitting around, and of course I played it because I played a lot of video games. You know how it goes. And then I didn't really get into Mortal Kombat until Mortal Kombat X, because once again, my dad got it, and I was like, all right, I'll get into this. Why not? By that point in time, it was the Xbox One generation, and I was definitely more knowledgeable about video games, more into video games, more I am playing this game, and I'm going to remember this game sort of thing. It's not like a child where I'm just playing whatever I can. I am playing this game on purpose, and I want to. So basically, for me, when it comes to these Mortal Kombat stories, I watched all the cutscenes of 9 to lead into 10, or excuse me, X. And then Mortal Kombat X was my first full playthrough of a Mortal Kombat story, and I very much enjoyed it. And then I played 11, very much enjoyed that as well. And now, as well as the Aftermath DLC, and now we are in Mortal Kombat 1, which is the rebooted timeline after, of course, spoilers for Mortal Kombat 11, Liu Kang reset the timeline after he, beat down Kronika. And Kronika, what a final boss that was in Mortal Kombat 11. That I remember really having to figure out how to play the game to beat Kronika. It was a very exciting time. I was never better at Mortal Kombat 11 than when I had to fight Kronika. It was a great time. Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about Mortal Kombat 1, and the story of Mortal Kombat 1, of course, takes place after Liu Kang reset the timeline, and we are in his new world, his new world order. And of course, he is now the Lord. He's Lord Liu Kang, the protector of Earthrealm. And the setup is as any Mortal Kombat, where you, of course, he has to gather up the champions of Earth, and then they go fight the tournament of Mortal Kombat. And then, of course, there are twists and turns that happen because it is a reboot, but it is in Liu Kang's vision. So, things are going to be different. Like, you might expect one thing to be this, but it's actually not, and it's a different way. And I can't really get into much without spoiling it, but we'll get to that part later. And let's just get this part out of the way real quick. We got to talk about Megan Fox in this game, okay? That's a big sticking point for a lot of people right now, a big talking point for a lot of people right now. Megan Fox's line delivery. It's not great, but I really don't think it's her fault. It's not, because Mortal Kombat 11, of course, had Ronda Rousey play Sonya Blade, which is just as bad, if not worse, as Megan Fox's 4 lines that she says. Because she's not even in the story that much. She says like 6 lines probably total. But yeah, it's just as bad as Ronda Rousey was. And because of that, I have to imagine that it's more so a NetherRealm thing rather than a Megan Fox thing or a Ronda Rousey thing. Jean-Claude Van Damme did voice lines for this game. I don't know what they sound like because I didn't pay the extra money to play as him, but I don't imagine that they're great, I really feel like NetherRealm has gotten to the point where they just are more like, look at who we got. We got Ronda Rousey in this game. Isn't that cool? Ronda Rousey, just read these lines off the page and we'll use them. And they didn't really care about, going back and be like, could you add more emotion? Or Megan Fox. Whoa, we got Megan Fox. Megan Fox, can you read these? That'd be great. And they just leave it at that. And there's the first take. I feel like a lot of these are just the first take, and they're like, yeah, we got her. We got her. And they don't want to like overstep their bounds because they're like, ooh, superstar celebrity. We don't want to, hurt our relationship with them. We don't want them to decide after the fact, you know what? Nah, I don't want to do this halfway through the recording or anything like that. Because I went back. I did some investigative journalism where I went back to Megan Fox's IMDb page. And I looked up her voice acting roles in the past. She did Robot Chicken, where she played Lois Lane, and the original Transformers movie, The Game. And in those, she sounds like, normal. It's nothing crazy. She can definitely play a character. Like, that much is evident on her Lois Lane portrayal in the Robot Chicken. I know it's not that much to go off, but still, I really feel like it's more of a NetherRealm thing where they just don't want to ask too much from their top tier celebrities, especially after hearing the fact that Ed Boon said he wanted all of the Mortal Kombat ones roster to be celebrities, which included Kenshi being played by Keanu Reeves. That's a whole thing. I really don't think that should ever be the case. It's cool every now and then, but to do a whole cast of celebrities, that's not ideal. I don't think it's not sustainable, and it's not great, because if this is how they do celebrity voice work, it's not. No. But yeah, that's all I had to say on the Megan Fox debate going on right now. But yeah, I sort of just went on a tangent there about the whole Megan Fox thing, but let's focus back on the story. And the downer of this campaign, or this story mode, in my opinion, though, like on a surface level, is that a lot of times these characters get sidelined very quickly. Because, of course, if you played a Mortal Kombat story, you are familiar with the setup. You play individual chapters, and each chapter has a specific character you play as. And in doing that, I really feel like it sidelines like half of the cast so quickly, because you play as them once and then you never see them again. And it's just like, I really wish there was a better way to keep everyone involved in the story throughout, instead of just a rotating cast that we had going on. I really feel like the format in which they do the story needs to change in the next iteration, because personally, I feel like the character chapters make it a lot less exciting, in my opinion, because you know who you're going to play as, you know how these fights are going to play out, and you just don't really get that sort of like, what do you call it? Suspense. Because if you're playing as this character, well, that means they're just going to win all these story beats. all the story beats, they're gonna win, you know. But it'd be cool. I don't know how difficult this would be considering how much there is to their story now, and how like there's like a specific canon going forward with these games. It'd be cool if you would swap throughout characters at various points in the story instead of just being that one character throughout a single chapter. That way it's more engaging, more exciting, I think. And that way you can it keeps you on your toes in that way if you follow my drift here. If you see what I'm saying here. Cuz a classic Mortal Kombat thing throughout all of the Mortal Kombat is a Scorpion versus Sub-Zero thing. Whoever the chapter is that you play as, then it's just like, oh, well, that's clearly who's going to win. I'm playing a Scorpion in this chapter, so Scorpion's going to win this duel sort of thing. And it's always a big deal because people just love Scorpion and Sub-Zero's rivalries and all that. But I think it'd be more exciting if it's like, hey, pick either one. In this moment in the story, you can pick either one, and that'd be really cool. And then it plays off of your choice. But of course, because of how much of a story-driven games these tend to be now, it might be too complicated, considering they'd have to then go through a canon choice or reflect on everyone's choices. It's a whole thing. But the basic thing here is I feel like they should change it up so that you don't play as one character throughout a single chapter, and rather switch it up in between. Because there are moments where you are with a full group of characters, but you're only playing as Raiden. I was thinking of Metal Gear. Raiden. Raiden is Mortal Kombat. Raiden is Metal Gear. They spell the same, pronounced differently. It's a whole thing. Anyways, where there's a whole group of people, but you're playing as Raiden in this chapter, so it's just like everyone else is kind of just sidelined. But what they do find good use of in the story and overall with the game is this cameo system, where you are essentially just calling upon an ally throughout your adventures or just in combat in general. And that's combat with a K, of course. Where that's the big change between Mortal Kombat, any Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 1, this cameo system. If I'm being completely honest, as a casual player who isn't so deep in the weeds of all these combos and can't chain together anything to save their life, I oftentimes forget that the cameos exist. I know that they're there, and I only use them when I'm like, oh, I'm about to lose. Let me try to use them. Help me out. Do something, please. If I'm like really in a pinch, I'll be like, oh, let me try to do this. See if this does anything. They're all unique in a way, in their own ways. So I really need to play around with more of them to see how they benefit my playstyle, which is, of course, button mashing. Button mashing with a purpose, though. You know, I know some combos. I try. I know special moves. I try. I try my hardest out there, okay? But, yeah, I oftentimes forget that they're there, and I feel like based off of my limited online play, I feel like a lot of people do too. A lot of other people I've run into, at least, very low rank, so, you know. I don't know if what that indicates for, like, the higher ranked players. But, because whenever I use a cameo, my opponent will oftentimes immediately use their cameo right after me, because they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot I have that. That's how I take it, at least. Or maybe it's a coincidence. Who knows? But the thing about the cameo system that I find as a bummer is that early on when this game was announced and the cameo system was announced, people were concerned that having a character as a cameo means that they aren't a playable character. And then Ed Boon and NetherRealm were very quick to say, oh, no, no, no. Just because they're a cameo character doesn't mean that they're not going to be playable. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good to hear. Because, of course, when they revealed this game, the first cameo characters shown were Kano, Sonya Blade, and Jax. I feel like there was a fourth one, but I don't remember. And when I heard that they were cameo characters, I was like, that's kind of sucky that they aren't playable in this game. But then he said, oh, cameo characters, they could still be playable characters. But they aren't. Kano, Sonya Blade, and Jax just aren't in this game as playable characters. And they're not even in the story. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but not really. Which bummed me out, especially coming from Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11, where they play key factors in that story. So I was really bummed out that I didn't get to see them here or even play as them. They're only relegated to this cameo system, which I oftentimes forget. They all have their own fatalities though, so I should definitely get better at, utilizing them and learning them because they can be helpful in a pinch. So if they're helpful in a pinch, I'd imagine they're just helpful all the time. But since we were talking about online play, this is a good time as any to talk about my experiences with online play. And I gotta say, I think there's a lot of hacking going on. I feel like the game just came out and people are already hacking it, and NetherRealm isn't doing anything because I keep losing, and there's no other explanation for that. Simply no other explanation. The only explanation is that there's hacking and I am a victim. It's nothing to do with my skill or lack thereof. For real though. It's been fun. It's been fun. It's fine, you know. It's more Mortal Kombat. It doesn't do anything to move the needle forward. It's just more Mortal Kombat Online. Coming off of Mortal Kombat 11, there's a lot of things that I do feel like Mortal Kombat 1 is lacking. Because Mortal Kombat 11, of course, had things like stage fatalities, stage interactions, which also it's not in this game anymore, but I still try to use it. Like anytime I'm in a stage where I see like a rack of swords behind me, I still like my instinct is still to press the right bumper to try to throw that object at someone. It's not a thing in this game. But and then other things like I said stage fatalities, stage interactions. What else was there? Friendships. Of course, friendships were added later in Mortal Kombat or with the Aftermath DLC. Aftermath expansion rather. So it does make me wonder or hope that all of these things that I'm thinking, oh, Mortal Kombat 1 is lacking at the moment, they will come eventually with potential expansion, because of course DLC characters already confirmed and there are some leaks out there which get me pretty excited. We'll get to that later though. But I do hope that following in Mortal Kombat 11's footsteps, that Mortal Kombat 1 has an actual expansion that essentially adds on a whole new story and a bunch of new characters and a bunch of new features. Because it just seems odd to play Mortal Kombat 11 for this past like 6 months. I was looking forward to Mortal Kombat 1, of course. So I played a bunch of Mortal Kombat 11 leading into it, waiting for it. And it just seems odd that that game had so many more features that Mortal Kombat 1 just doesn't have at launch. But hopefully they come down somewhere down the line. And things like customization, I also feel like were more in depth with Mortal Kombat 11, where you could change like different pieces of your character, whereas in Mortal Kombat 1, it's just one piece that you can change, not the anime or the Netflix show, but just one item. And then of course multiple shaders, which there's a bunch. And you can find them in this new game mode called Invasions, which is Mortal Kombat 1's version of here's the extra thing you can do, because of course Mortal Kombat always has that extra thing you can do. Mortal Kombat X had that, what do you call it? It was like a PC dungeon crawler thing where it was the first person view and you walked. It was really weird. And then Mortal Kombat 11 had the crypt, I think it was called. You're on the third person view, you had a hammer on your back. You walked around, it was weird. Lots of weird things in Mortal Kombat's history, of course. But Invasions it's essentially like an RPG sort of thing where you go through this map and then you walk on it's like a game board. It's how it's presented. The way it's presented to you is like a game board where you move forward, you can move up one space, you fight a guy, then you can move up to the next space, you fight a guy. And they all have like different modifiers attached to them. Things like, oh, they do extra fire damage. Oh, there are bats fighting you too. It's a lot of weird things that just help add to the longevity of your single player experience if you are running into a lot of hackers online like I was, of course. Like I was hacked a lot in the multiplayer. But yeah. That's all I gotta say on a non-spoilery way. That's all I have to say in a non-spoilery way. So yeah, overall, Mortal Kombat 1, the score I would give it, of course, my scale, a 10-point scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No 0.5s or anything like that. On my 10-point scale, Mortal Kombat 1 gets an 8 out of 10 because it still has a lot of room for improvement, lacking a lot of the things from Mortal Kombat 11. Of course, that did come in future expansions, so things like that could be remedied in the future for this game. But there's also the main storyline, which I thought was overall a lesser than experience than Mortal Kombat 11's, and left me wanting for more. And I do hope that we get more. And I also just feel like a lot of characters were sidelined or just not in this game. Things like that really just overall brought the game down. Just 2 points for me. An 8 out of 10 is still very good because the gameplay is there, and the gameplay is what you're here for more often than not. The gameplay is what's going to keep you playing this game for the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years. And that's here. So while the story and all of that stuff may seem not ideal, they could get better with expansions and more story content that could fill in those holes for me, and new additions that could bring Mortal Kombat 1 up to where Mortal Kombat 11 ended. You know what I mean? With additions like friendships, babalities, maybe? Is that going to make a comeback? Is animalities a thing, I think? I don't know. Add a bunch of stuff. With it being called Mortal Kombat 1, they could leave this as a platform for the years to come and just keep adding to it, and I wouldn't mind that. They could call it Mortal Kombat 1, and the 1 stands for it's all of Mortal Kombat in one, like the Xbox One, all in one console, that sort of thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I give it an 8 out of 10. Let me know what you think about the game overall, and if you want to talk spoilers for the story, we're about to do that right now. If you don't want to have spoilers for the story, this is your chance to run. And something I forgot to mention, but with the power of editing, I can say real quick and plug it in and you won't even know the difference. But, I just told you. So you do know the difference now. You're welcome, I guess. I didn't even mention how absolutely just jaw-droppingly gorgeous this game is. From the moment-to-moment gameplay, definitely, it looks just visually impressive. And the story cutscenes especially are just something to there are moments where honestly, it's going to make me sound a little bit crazy. It could be real. It looks better than real life. That's how good it looks. Just because, it's so much better stylized. The lighting is perfect and all of that sort of thing. It's so good, in fact, that like all the character models and lip sync is so good, in fact, that usually in a video game, I would turn on subtitles because there's always that disconnect between a digital person speaking where I just need the subtitles as an added help for me personally. Whereas in movies, I never watch with subtitles or anything like that. In Mortal Kombat 1, in the story, I did not need the subtitles on because that's just how good these facial performances were. Which does lead me into another point that I also forgot, which is that despite me overall, at the end of the day, thinking that Mortal Kombat 1's story is not as good as Mortal Kombat 11 or Aftermath, for that matter, is that it still is far and away miles better than any of these Mortal Kombat movies have been. And it's just, anytime I play a Mortal Kombat story, whether it was 11, whether it was X or Aftermath or this, I'm just like, why? Why, when they write these movies, they get people who just aren't as good as the internal writers in NetherRealm themselves, who not only understand the characters way better, but also are really good at telling stories within this world. It's astounding. What they need to do with the Mortal Kombat movie, scrap the sequel to that one movie that was released in the pandemic times. That thing was awful, terrible. Throw it under the rug, scrap it, and just start again with the writers from NetherRealm themselves, and don't Hollywoodify it. Who is this main character again? The weird guy that they just created out of nowhere. I don't remember his name, but there's so much rich lore with Mortal Kombat that could be perfectly translated into a movie, and yet it's just not. Because I don't understand why Liu Kang isn't the main character in a Mortal Kombat movie, and instead it's just guy that we made up who sucked. He had like powerful shield arms or something. It was lame. Just make Liu Kang the main character in a Mortal Kombat movie and deal with the classic Mortal Kombat tournament and all of that. And don't cast Raiden as some generic old guy. You need someone with prestige to be Raiden, And the last thing that I wanted to add on is that I might have mentioned it earlier. I don't recall entirely because, as I said, this is after the fact. you know, after I did the initial recording. But with the particular issue of Johnny Cage, I did mention how every line he says is just a movie reference or a joke. And I definitely feel like, for me personally, that I might be harsher on that because, of course, as I've said 1,000 times in this video, my experience with Mortal Kombat is X and 11. And of course, Johnny Cage is a much more mature character in those games. He is a father and a much bigger central figure who is, yeah, a lot more mature and toned down and less Hollywood and more military in a sense. So it makes sense that it might just be that it's jarring for me to come to this Johnny Cage who in Mortal Kombat 1, as it is the reboot, it is a Johnny Cage before all of the character development that he may still go on throughout, future iterations with this character. He is back to square one Johnny Cage. A Johnny Cage I'm sure like longtime fans are glad to see again, but for me personally, it's a personal thing. I would understand if other people feel differently about that, but for me, that's where my rationale came from. I don't know if I mentioned that, but even if I did, I feel like I explained it far better here. So this is still going to be in it. But yeah, this was my little interjection that I had to add on because I forgot to mention it the first time around. Let's go back to the actual first recording. So keep enjoying this video. And if you haven't already hit the like button, you should, just saying. Anyways. Okay. Spoiler section. If you are still here, I don't know why. I already told you, so you can't be mad at me. But this game, it's a multiverse game again. There are so many multiverse stories in this. Just this year alone, maybe the past 5 years, there's just been so many multiverse stories. Okay, and Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath also was dealing with the multiverse in a small way. Mortal Kombat 11 in general was the multiverse. I'll be honest, I don't remember the specifics of Mortal Kombat 11's story. I just remember different versions of different characters just meeting up and doing a whole thing. It was a whole thing. But more multiverse stuff. Yeah. Remember how this game was being advertised as a soft reboot for the franchise? Yeah, that was a lie. That was a big old lie. Because yeah, having played Mortal Kombat 11, but I didn't replay the story or anything like that because I didn't think I would need to because this is a reboot. Even having played that game, I was a little confused sometimes when things like when I was trying to remember how Liu Kang left the old timeline, the previous timeline, all that stuff. It's the whole thing. Okay, let me bring it back to one. Let me bring it back to one here. Let me bring it back to one. The story starts out. We're doing the whole story, okay? The story is really quick, so it's not going to take too long, probably. And if it does, this is just a long video, whatever, who cares? But yeah, the story starts off, and you're just a farmer Raiden. You play as Kung Lao, though. You're playing as Kung Lao, and you're fighting Raiden, yada, yada, yada. The Lin Kuei are there. Oh, yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I'm going to open up the game right now, honestly, and look at the chapter select screen, if that's okay with everyone. I hope you're cool with that. I'll find jump off points from the chapter select screen, I'm sure. But yeah, you start off in your Kung Lao and you're fighting Raiden because you guys are buddies and you're just having a friendly fight about who's going to pay the bill. And then, of course, the Lin Kuei show up and it's Smoke, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero. And you have to fight them. And then it turns out they're friends with Liu Kang. Liu Kang's their buddy. Liu Kang's their pal. The whole thing. And the Lin Kuei, it's everyone. It's Smoke. Yeah, I already said that. And Sub-Zero and Scorpion in this iteration, in this new timeline, are brothers, which is a twist, I believe, because usually, of course, they come from the two clans, the Shiryu. Like I said, I'm very casual Mortal Kombat fan, so don't, be too mad at me, okay? But yeah, the Shiryu Dragon clan and the Lin Kuei. Of course, usually just rival clans fight each other. But in this one, they're brothers. And of course, this is spoiler section, so I'm not going to say it again. Get out of here if you don't want spoilers. I already spoiled the whole multiverse twist. Anyways, the twist that I liked on these two characters is that from my experience and my knowledge is that Scorpion has always been like this bad guy. He's a little edgy guy he's a little evil. But in this one, Sub-Zero's the evil guy. You saw that? That was crazy. I'm going to have to assume you have you are in the know. So I'm gonna talk to you like you already know what's up. Okay. So it was it was cool to see Sub-Zero take on the darker role, and eventually, he turned on he turned on our group of heroes, and he's the bad guy. And there was a line that Scorpion threw out where he's like, Cyrax and Sector are still going to be with him, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the robots, they're still in here, but we don't see them. They're cameos. They're not playable, though. So if you like those characters, it sucks for you. They're cameos. You can't play them. And then I believe Sub-Zero's character's name, that specific Sub-Zero, I don't remember his name. But I think he becomes Noob Saibot, and if I believe there were leaks, don't tell anyone. But I believe there were leaks saying that Noob Saibot is a potential DLC character. And if that's the case, I feel like Noob Saibot would be a character for a potential story expansion. Because the way that this game leaves off, where I was talking about how it leaves you wanting for more, Sub-Zero and Scorpion are just not on the same page anymore, because of course Sub-Zero's a bad guy now, and he's just left off to the wind. We don't know what's going on with him. He's being a bad guy. And then Scorpion formed the new clan, the Shai Ryu clan, I think. And of course, then you get your classic warring factions, the rivalry between Sub-Zero and Scorpion. You get the classic stuff there between them, and that's fun. You get the classic stuff there. I imagine we're going to deal with some of that in a potential expansion, because it seemed way too open-ended for it to just end. It didn't end. And then of course you move on to the Johnny Cage chapter, where you spend a little bit of time with Johnny Cage, and that's it. Johnny Cage in this game as well. What did they do? Where's the writing team on this guy? All they did was they wrote his lines normally, I feel, and then they went back and went, we're going to make this a movie reference somehow. I understand he's a movie guy, Hollywood, Mr. Hollywood, but not every line he says has to be about a movie reference. Come on. Everything he said, I was just couldn't have come up with anything else. Because I feel like any line that they wrote normally, they'd either, of course, turn into a joke or a movie reference. And that was just... it was too much. And coming off of course, I'm going to say it a lot because it's my Mortal Kombat games. Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11. Johnny Cage was a much cooler character in those games. I'm just going to say it. Okay? In my opinion. And then we move on to Chapter 3, The Chosen One, where you play as Raiden. And he is the Chosen One. But he's gone from this story after this. After this chapter, Raiden is just nowhere to be seen until the end of the game. What happened here? This is, I feel like, one of the biggest missteps in the game story, or the game in general, because I was shocked, because I know Raiden is now taking essentially Liu Kang's place as Earth Realm's champion, right? Because of course Liu Kang was in the past, but now Liu Kang is the god, and of course Raiden is still here, so Raiden is now the champion. They kind of swapped in that sense. And I was surprised that I was playing as Raiden this early. I was like, oh, I guess I'll play as Raiden again later. There'll probably be a second chapter of Raiden. And I thought that it was going to be a thing where Raiden is just a normal dude in this game. And he just doesn't have his powers. He doesn't have any electricity, lightning powers. And you're fighting off Johnny Cage, Kenshi. Also, Kenshi shows up. Shout out to Kenshi. You're fighting your friends, just to train, see who's gonna, or not to train, but to see who's gonna be Earth Realm's champion. And of course, Raiden wins because you're playing as Raiden. That's one of the things I was talking about, how it's kind of it takes out the suspense when you're playing as the character, so you know that they are going to win. And of course, it's Raiden. So since he's not the elder, or he's not a god in this game, he's going to just be the champion. And he doesn't have his powers. And then Liu Kang is like, here is this medallion that will give you electric powers, the powers of lightning and all that. And I was like, oh, that's how they're going to do it. Because, of course, you can't have Raiden and not have his normal power set. Otherwise, the long-standing fans of the franchise would not appreciate that if he was just some guy with nothing powers, So you have to have a way to give him his lightning abilities. And I thought what was going to happen is he's going to be like, I don't need this to be Earthrealm's champion. I don't need this. I thought I was going to refuse it from Liu Kang, but Liu Kang was like, nah, I take it. And he was like, yeah, I'll take it. He even asked, he said the line, is this necessary? And I was like, yes, cool decision. I thought what they were going to do is have this whole chapter is going to be no power Raiden. And then things will happen in the story later where things are just so dire and so terrible, where Raiden takes that medallion and uses the lightning abilities and is like the final character you play at the end of the story. None of that happened because, of course, this game isn't actually a reboot. It still is a continuation of 11. We'll get to that later, though. But yeah, something I didn't even mention earlier is Megan Fox. I might, if I mentioned Megan Fox earlier in the video, it's only because I recorded that separately and put it in later. I put it in after the fact. That's the magic of editing. But yeah, then we move on to chapter 4. You are Kenshi, I believe. And this was one of the cool chapters where it takes things you know about these characters and sort of twists it on you. Or it doesn't twist it on you. It is a new origin story in a sense. Because Kenshi, of course, he's the blind swordsman, if you are familiar with Mortal Kombat. And for some reason, I did not even notice that he wasn't blind in this game. Of course, until chapter 4. I think you see where I'm going with that. Because in chapter 4, we do see him lose his eyes. And that was a really cool moment because I never really thought about it in previous games, how he's just a blind guy. And I learned all about his origins here. I don't know if it's ever been touched on before, but for me, this was the first time I was exposed to it. And I thought it was a really cool thing. But yeah, we're going to skip around a lot more because I am doing it chapter by chapter. And honestly, there's not much to talk about chapter by chapter. But I do want to talk about how we're introduced to Baraka, Reptile, and Ashura around this time. They're all in this game for about 15 minutes a pop. You play as them a little bit and then they're gone. Never to be seen again. That's one of the things I was talking about, how they just sort of disappear. And there's no full circle moment where they come back to be like, I did this thing while you guys are doing this, and now I'm good friends, we're good buddies, we did good things. And then I want to talk about Melina and Katana and Sindel. They could all get it, you know what I mean? Anyways, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, the way that they are all handled. I didn't mention it earlier, but I'm going to mention it here. I was bummed out by the fact that Liu Kang is the fire god, the Lord of Earthrealm, or whatever his title is. There's a lot of titles you could give him. So I was bummed out. You know what? I'll get to that later. I'll tease it right now, though. I was bummed out by the fact that Liu Kang has like no attachment to any of these people because, of course, I'm very familiar with the whole Liu Kang Katana romance. And I was very bummed out that when he sees Katana, there's nothing there because, of course, he created this katana. That's not his katana, that whole thing. But we'll get to that later. You already know what I'm talking about because you played this game and that's why you're in the spoiler section. But yeah, those characters, awesome. I don't think I've ever played as Melina. I don't remember playing Melina. Of course, Melina, how many times did I say Melina? Melina was a DLC character in Mortal Kombat 11, but there was no story to her, of course, because it's just a DLC. And then I want to say she was not in 10 either, which is the only other one I played. So this is the first time I've gotten story content from Melina. And as far as I'm aware, this is like a new origin story, a new twist on her character where her teeth, her mouth doing that thing, what that thing do, doing the thing it does. Apparently, that's like a disease that she has to like control in this timeline, which I thought was really cool because as far as anything I knew about Melina was that she was just a little kind of a psychotic, biting, crazy lady, and if you're into that, you're into that. I'm not gonna judge you on that, but I really liked how she was humanized here and not just that feral creature that I know her as, and she ended up being one of my favorite characters in this game. I do wish though that you could make her face normal in the multiplayer. Obviously, I understand why you couldn't because there is a lot of her moves that, she bites people. But I feel like you could. I don't know if there's a cosmetic you can get later that, turns it off because it's scary. It's scary. And she's really pretty without it. I'm going to be honest. Anyways. But yeah. And it was weird to see Katana essentially sidelined for Melina to take the stage in this game because as far as I was aware, Katana was the main-ish character. At least between those two, Katana was the good one who always got more screen time. And then Sindel also, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean? And actually, that leads into another point from earlier that I can now go into spoiler detail about. How I wanted the game to make it more keep you on your toes in a sense where you don't know which character you're playing as, which with each individual fight, each chapter isn't just a character at a time. Where once I ain't even talk about. Well, we'll talk about it right now. Actually, when Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat 11 shows up in Liu Kang's new timeline. When he shows up, he brings in Sindel from that timeline as well. Mortal Kombat 11 Sindel. It's crazy. It's going to get hard to talk about when I have to say MK11, MK1. Anyways, when MK11 Sindel shows up and MK1 Sindel fights her in the cutscene, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I really wish I was fighting right now though. Because I knew I was playing as Melina in that chapter. Melina's awesome, don't get me wrong. But it would have been so cool to do a Sindel versus Sindel fight. But I wasn't. So Sindel died. So it was a real shame. Because, gee, whoo, you know what I mean? Sindel, Melina, Lee May, Katana, you know what I mean? This is a good video game, okay? Maybe it should get a 9 out of 10. But, yeah, from there, what's a good jumping off point from there? Yeah, that was as good a time as any. Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat 11 comes through, he says, what's up? Hey, Liu Kang, I was acting like I was Chronica earlier in this video game. I even mentioned he was acting like he was Chronica. And I was like, as soon as this game started, and it showed Chronica talking to merchant lowly street rat Shang Tsung in Liu Kang's timeline, I was like, oh snap. Should I have replayed Mortal Kombat 11? Why is Chronica here? What's happening? I don't remember where we left her off. What is happening? It wasn't even Chronica. It was just Mortal Kombat 11 Shang Tsung, taking on her form to, look like a cool guy, I guess. I don't know. Well, I guess he was talking to himself, so he couldn't just show up as himself. That'd be weird. Anyways. And so yeah, that's the impetus of this entire story. Mortal Kombat 11, this Shang Tsung discovers that Liu Kang's timeline exists, and he's like, get it out of here, Liu Kang. You suck. I hate you. I hate your guts, Liu Kang. I won. Your timeline shouldn't exist. It should only be my timeline. So I'm going to take over your timeline. I'm going to merge these timelines. And so to do that, he, steps over into the timeline. How did he do that? They never explained how they cross timelines, huh? I guess just being a timekeeper allows you to do that, I guess. Anyways, but yeah, this basically, in an alternate reality, Liu Kang lost and Shang Tsung won, and he became the timekeeper, keeper of time in his universe. It's a whole multiverse thing. You know how it goes. I'm sure you're tired of it. Anyways, yeah. So Mortal Kombat 11 Shang Tsung goes through Liu Kang's timeline and picks up all of the villains from Mortal Kombat series history and gives them their powers. Because in Liu Kang's timeline, he made them lowly, poor people who don't have any powers or any importance in the world so that they can't, create chaos and disrupt the balance that Liu Kang has worked so hard to achieve or create, rather. Oh, which is another thing. In these tournaments, the classic Mortal Kombat tournaments, they aren't dying. It's not a death tournament like, it used to be back in the day. Anyways, but yeah. That's the big old plot twist that it turns out this is actually just a straight up sequel to Mortal Kombat 11, not Mortal Kombat 1. It's not a reboot. If you didn't play Mortal Kombat 11, you're probably confused. Even if you did play Mortal Kombat 11, you still might be confused. But yeah, so basically, Liu Kang's like, okay, well, I'm going to need help from other timelines to take down Shang Tsung. So he goes through all the other timelines. And then the first person he pulls from another timeline is Katana. And they very quickly establish the fact that, hey, wait, if you in your timeline broke off into your own timeline, that means when I broke off into my own timeline, or blah blah blah. I'm butchering the explanation, but basically because they both became timekeepers, it's because they sprouted from that original timeline. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. You played it. I don't know why I'm going into such detail about what the explanation is. You know, they are each other. They are both the MK11. They have memories of MK11 and all the other games before that and all that jazz. So they are each other's Liu Kang and Katana. So they make out, and I'm getting teary. I got teary eyed in that moment because I was like, that's great. I love love, and I was bummed out when Liu Kang saw Katana earlier in the game, and it was just like there's nothing there because that's not his Katana. He got his Katana later in this game, and it brought a tear to my eye. Okay, I'm willing to admit that. And it was a great time. It was a great time. But yeah, so yeah, he pulls out a bunch of people from their timelines where they became timekeeper, and he gets Kung Lao, his buddy, best buddy, his best friend, and old man Raiden, which is neat. None of them really do anything in the game though. It's cool to see, of course, but they don't really do anything. They all shoot beams at the hourglass, which is really weird. And then Shang Tsung, we defeat Shang Tsung at our hourglass. And then we're like, then he retreats. And then he's like, well, he's probably going to go regroup and get a bunch of people. We need to stop him, and we have to go destroy his hourglass so he cannot harm other timelines. Because, of course, in the same moment, Shang Tsung has learned that there are other timelines out there, so he doesn't really care about Liu Kang's timeline. He's just going to destroy it and go take over other ones and essentially become Shang the Conqueror. That's a little joke there for you. A little play on Kang the Conqueror. Very clever. You can use that. Go ahead. Anyways, which culminates in chapter 15, Armageddon. And this is a deep cut. I'm not so entrenched in Mortal Kombat, but I am aware of the titles of the games. Of course, Deadly Alliance is the title, the one that I have played back in the day, PS2. And they said Deadly Alliance. Oh, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have formed a Deadly Alliance. And I was like, whoa, that's really cool. I know that game. There's also a chapter called Deadly Alliance when you played as Shang Tsung. But we're talking about chapter 15, which is called Armageddon. And if you're familiar with Mortal Kombat, you'll know that Mortal Kombat Armageddon is the Mortal Kombat game where they had every previous Mortal Kombat character in it. It was the Smash Brothers Ultimate of Mortal Kombat at the time. So when they call chapter 15 Armageddon, it starts with Liu Kang and his katana, his Kung Lao, his Raiden, and they're marching on Shang Tsung's hourglass temple thing he's got going on. And then more people come out of the portal, and more people, and more people. Everyone comes out of that portal. And it's crazy. It's the Armageddon of Mortal Kombat 1. It's the everyone here is moment. And yeah, I am going to be honest. As cool as that sounds, and for some reason, as I was saying it, I got goosebumps. I guess I'm just really good at describing things. It's very cool of me. But it, knowing that it's a reference to Armageddon, the game where everyone is here, it was a bit of a letdown in the way that not everyone is here, though. I know that that's not necessarily directly meaning that, but it's just odd that Liu Kang went to all of these other timelines and got all of the allies he could, and then it's just more Liu Kangs, more katanas, and there's a Shang Tsung, a good Shang Tsung, a good Quan Chi, just the good versions of every character that's on the Mortal Kombat 1 roster. Not even Sonya Blade was there. I thought Sonya Blade was there. It's not Sonya Blade. It's a female version of Johnny Cage. She has a t-shirt that says Cage on it. That's how you know. And she wears sunglasses. Sonya Blade doesn't in any universe, I guess. And it was a really cool moment, but yeah, that was a letdown in that department for it to be the everyone is here and not really everyone is here. And then it's odd to see that on Shang Tsung's side, he did the same thing where he got a bunch of evil versions of people, and Jax is over there. And it's just Jax with his robot arms. It's just a Jax. It's not even like an evil looking guy. He's just normal. And then there was a really cool Sonya Blade who became Kano sort of thing. But you don't get to fight them because they aren't in the game. So they didn't do that. They're in a cutscene though, and it's really cool to look at, but you don't really get anything out of it. But yeah, and then you do that whole thing. You select your fighter, and that was a really weird moment because now the finale of this story is a random person from a different timeline is the person who saved the day, which I thought was also underwhelming. I selected Liu Kang when I first played through it because I was hoping I would still be Liu Kang, but Fire God Liu Kang just becomes your cameo character. And yeah, yep. Yeah. That's the end of the game. Of course, the gameplay you are seeing though, because I didn't play Liu Kang again. When I went back to do it to record footage, I played as Natara because I wanted to hear more of Megan Fox's lines. And since we're here, I'm gonna do the thing where I talk about Megan Fox and her delivery right now, but you heard it earlier. But yeah, with the power of editing though, you did hear the Megan Fox bit earlier. So we're gonna keep on rolling out to the intro. But yeah, that's what I thought about Mortal Kombat 1 in every aspect. From the story, from the cameos, the invasion game mode, online play, what I hope for the DLC. I hope it adds all this stuff, of course. I'm very excited to play as Homelander, Peacemaker, and Omni-Man. That's exciting. Of course, there's also Mortal Kombat characters. Oh, that reminds me. The disrespect, the disrespect of the combat kids in the final chapter where you're running up there and then Katana just kills them all. It was so disrespectful because Cassie Cage, of course, having played MKX and MK11, Cassie Cage is my favorite character because she was essentially the main character of Mortal Kombat X and a big character in Mortal Kombat 11. So she's my favorite. And yeah, Katana just chopped her head off. Although, if the leaks are to be trusted, she is coming somewhere down the line, probably year 2, which is so far away. But anyways, yeah, that's all I have to say about Mortal Kombat 1. I went on for a really long time, I think. Let me look at the recording time. Wow, yeah, I went on for almost 50 minutes, so I don't know what the editing will look like on the back end for you guys or how long this will end up being. But yeah, that's impressive, honestly. It's probably because I did essentially 2 shows in one where I did surface level review and then story spoilers all in one go. But yeah, that's it. What did you think of Mortal Kombat 1? What did you think of the story? What do you hope for the future? Do you hope it gets support? Obviously, it's going to get supported. But what's your number one feature you hope to see? Personally, I really hope friendships come back again. It's odd that they were added in Mortal Kombat 11. Like they knew people wanted it, so they added it, and then it's just absent in the next one. That's so odd to me. But yeah, I hope friendships come back because John Cena's Peacemaker. What do you think his friendship would be? It'd be the intro to Peacemaker, and that'd be awesome. And it's not in the game though. The friendships don't exist yet. Anyways, but yeah. As you know, there's a lot of games coming out, so the next video will likely be about one of those games. So if you want to talk about any of those games coming out soon, leave a comment below about it, or of course anything about Mortal Kombat 1. It all drives engagement, and engagement is great because it helps the algorithm. When you're nice to the algorithm, the algorithm is nice to me. But yeah, until the next episode of TalkAbout, as always, stay safe and play some video games.